My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the Glowcloud team.
Welcome, everyone. We are here today to help you with any career questions you may have. Maybe your goal is to become an AWS solutions architect, or a cloud architect, or an enterprise architect, or a security architect, or a cloud security architect, or an AI architect, or other careers. That's why we're here. We like to come at least one time per week to help answer your career questions. I know in the beginning of my career, I didn't know where to go. I got a whole lot more certifications than I ever would have dreamed of. And unfortunately, none of them actually yielded me the job that I was actually looking for because I didn't know what to do. And then I got a little help, and then immediately I was hired. And I got a little more help, and I was a principal architect within 2 years of the time I started technology. And then from there, my career just went up. And I've then spent more than 2 decades helping people just like you get your first tech job, get promoted in tech, go from an engineer to an architect, go from a nurse to an architect, go from an engineer to a principal engineer, go from a basic architect to a principal architect, distinguished architect, that kind of thing. That's been my life, and that's what I've done. So I want to be here once per week. So you can have the easiest path to success. It's been said that a wise person learns from their mistakes, and I totally agree with that. And we all learn from our mistakes. But a wiser person learns from the mistakes of others. So you don't have to make them. And over the last 20 years, as a career coach, I've seen all the mistakes people make, and I can guide you on the best path for success. So please bring us your questions, because that's what we do here. My name is Mike Gibbs. You're also meeting with Alonzo Coleman. Alonzo Coleman is our Chief Marketing Officer. He is also an exceptionally good cloud architect, and he's got very strong AI knowledge as well. But he also is in a position as a hiring manager where he's hiring people and where he manages people. And any of us that are there know what we look for when we hire. So you'll get it from an executive architect with 25 years experience. You'll get it from a senior leader as well, who's also an architect, but that way you'll get a little different perspective of it. So make sure you ask us your questions, and we're happy to help.
One of the things I definitely want to share, Mike, with our audience is that going on now and into the not sure immediate future, based off of our availability, we are offering a whole 60%. That's right, our 60% off of our Black Friday sale. So that'll give you an opportunity to get amazing discounts with amazing resources on how to become the cloud architect or enterprise architect or whatever architect of your choice, to get that competency and get that strong foundation you need to be very successful. These are exciting times. There are a lot of great opportunities headed our way in 2025. We want you all to take advantage of that. So join us. We're not sure how many seats we have based off of availability. Please participate. And also, if you have additional questions, we will have another webinar tomorrow as well for you to ask even greater, more detailed questions following this particular webinar. So this Q&A is full of opportunities for you to get your answers, your questions answered. and your ability to jumpstart your career into becoming a cloud architect of your dreams. So join us. We're ready to answer your questions.
Yeah, and I look forward to those webinars every week because you come, we talk about the architect role, we talk about the architect skills, and then we meet face to face on Zoom. So we have a nice dialogue and we can guide you in any way we can. So hopefully join us for that free webinar tomorrow. So at this point, I'm so happy you're here, and I am so happy to answer any questions you may have. So Tyrone in the back, bring us your questions, and then Alonzo and I will answer them.
All right, Cloud Doctor, great to see you again. Hello, Mike and team. Which skills or experiences are more valuable when transitioning into an enterprise architect role?
Cloud Doctor, well, can you tell me where your starting point is? Meaning the current role that you have right now. Because ultimately, when we go from one role to another, what we need to do is look and consider the things that you know right now, what you're going to need to know in the future to be successful at the role, and create the gap analysis. So if you are right now a cloud architect, I can give you a list of skills that you're going to need to go from what you have in order to get you to that enterprise architect. If you're an engineer, it's going to be a completely different set of skills. So if I can get that information from you, great. If not, what I'll do is I will go over the role differences of the various kinds of architectures, and we'll take it from there. Okay, you're in engineering. So, Cloud Doctor, assuming you're not in management right now, like a director of engineers, and assuming you're not a, say, sales engineer, because you're going to be a little closer if you're a sales engineer. Engineering and architecture are both very important, but they're completely different in what we actually do. So as an engineer, you're most likely building things or you're performance tuning things. And if you're not Cloud Doctor, let me know in the chat box, since I see that you're responsive in the chat box. So you're going to typically be very hands-on. So as an engineer, your focus is the tech. You typically focus on building the tech, tuning the tech, optimizing the tech, troubleshooting the tech while it's being built. And then until you're done with it, it goes to support. And if that's not correct, Cloud Doctor, let me know. Now that is all about building technology, which you're used to. So now you're going to go into a world where you're really now more focused on aligning an organization's people, its processes, and its technology, which is very different than what you're doing now. But here's the good thing. When you say you're hands-on and you want to leave that space, that's exactly what I was thinking. But here's the good thing. All that time in engineering, you did learn a lot of technology. And that is good because life is cumulative. And everything that you know makes you better in some way, shape, or form. The real challenge now is basically for you to take those lessons that you have as that engineer and then change the way you think and change your focus completely. And then if you do that, you're going to be in great shape. So if we look at what we do as various kinds of architects, and what I'll do is I'll show you a slide that Alonzo and I put together, and we kind of showed the different high-level things that people actually do in these various architecture roles. So let me share this slide with you, and I'll talk about the different skills as we go through these that you're actually going to need to be able to actually do these things. So bear with me. So if we look, hold on. So if we look at what I'm trying to show you here, and Tyrone, if you can take the Cloud Doctor's question off real quick so we have more space on the screen. If we look at that solutions architect or that cloud solutions architect, which is the most intro level of all these architecture roles, what you can see is, bear with me, I just wanted to be, I put it on the wrong screen. So it's, what you can see is they're designing scalable and secure cloud architectures, which again is a system design thing. Now that means knowledge of the following technologies: networking, data center, compute, whether it be virtual machines, containers, bare metal servers, storage, whether it be block storage, object storage, file storage, security and security types, and whether that be IAM things like Microsoft Active Directory, or whether it be network security things like firewalls or IDS, IPS systems or ACLs, or any other kind of things that you're talking about, as well as all the applications that an organization might use. So the solutions architect needs to have knowledge of those underlying technologies because they're going to design them. Now, that means they need to know how those technologies work, how those technologies fit together, and also what those technologies can do for the business. That solutions architect is not going to code, they're not going to configure, and they're not going to learn that by doing hands-on labs. It's a very different kind of knowledge. Now, that solutions architect is most likely going to be doing some pre-sales activities, presentations, sales meeting, lots of client entertainment. And then they're going to be looking at the organization's current infrastructure. And what is that infrastructure? It's network infrastructure, it's data center infrastructure, it's compute infrastructure, it's security infrastructure, it's storage infrastructure, etc. So they've got to, in some way, either create a small team of people or do it themselves, analyze those current technology platforms. So as you can see, you need knowledge of the technology. But now we're talking about pre-sales activities. And that means you're meeting with clients and you're helping to sell. So you're going to need on all these architecture jobs really good, strong sales skills. And that's why, obviously, every skill we're going to actually talk about here, we train at GoCloud Careers with our program. The next thing the most junior of the architects would do, more the solutions architect, is they're going to look for ways to save money. Can we use smaller servers? Would this serverless thing be cheaper or more expensive? Should we put this application here or there? What's going to be the cheapest? So at this level, the solutions architect is looking at how to save money. So there's a little business acumen there. Now, the solutions architect is also going to help design disaster recovery plans. That means helping that organization calculate the cost of downtime. So that means more business acumen, being able to determine how much downtime they can tolerate, and then help craft a strategy for what happens in a disaster. So that's a little bit strategic there. Now, this is the least strategic of all the architecture roles. It's the closest to the technology, but it's still 50-50 business. At leading proof of concept testing, now here's the thing, you're not going to do it yourself as an architect. You're going to bring in a team to do it, and you have to lead that team. So at that solution architect level, we're developing and maintaining infrastructure. So we still need presentation skills at that level. We need a good set of scale skills. We need some degree of leadership skills. We're going to need some degree of executive presence here and business acumen. Now, as we move up into that cloud architect role, it becomes a bigger role. So now that cloud architect, and of course, a cloud architect can work as a solution architect. A solution architect typically needs a little additional training to become a cloud architect. And that's why so many people we train to be cloud architects work as solutions architects or cloud architects. But now they're designing the whole thing. The private cloud, the hybrid multi-cloud. And 98% of enterprises are multi-cloud. So this is where that cloud architect sort of fits in. So at this level, we're now getting into bigger architectures. We're getting into all components across all clouds and data centers, whether it's compute, it's now networking, it's storage, AI. So now at this point, we're helping to craft governance frameworks, and we're looking at various cloud adoption models that we could use. Which one should we use for the business? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each approach? After evaluating all trade-offs, what's in the best of our business? Now we're looking at optimizing cloud costs, but we're also looking here to not only optimize cloud costs, but we're trying to get more business value of the technology. And now at this point, we're evaluating cloud providers and third-party application providers. In fact, in an enterprise, there could be 1,000 different vendors to work with. So I hope this kind of makes sense as the cloud architect. So now you need more business skills, and now you're going to need a team to work across 3 clouds, so you're going to need more leadership skills. And now, because you're working across multiple clouds, you're going to be reporting much higher in. So you may be talking to the CIO on a more daily basis. You're going to need more executive presence, and you're going to need CXO relevancy. Now, once we move into the king and the queen of all architecture roles, which is the enterprise architect, which is what I've done most of my life, this is an 80% business executive job, 20% technology. So now you have to be able to understand business processes and business process reengineering. So more business acumen. Now you need to be able to lead a technology team of 50 to 100 people. So better leadership skills. Now you're going to be presenting at more conferences. You're going to be presenting to the C-suite. So your business acumen needs to be top notch. Your executive presence. You look much more like an MBA at this point. And now you're not just looking at designing the technology, you're designing ways to make sure that all the organization's business initiatives, increase sales, expand to a new country, be able to expand into a new market. Now you're designing technology systems and business processes to make that happen. So now it's much more strategic design, full business technology. So if you're familiar with those Michael Porter forces that they talk about from Harvard Business School of Business, people, processes, technology, this is your job there. So now you're making sure that the technology isn't just scalable, but it's more agile to adapt with business needs. You're going to lead an architecture review board. You're going to create architecture standards. You're going to perform a whole lot of vendor management and a whole lot of stakeholder management. And at this point, when you're talking governance procedures, it gets big and it gets big fast. So at the end of the day, each one of these roles as we move forward, Tyrone, you can stop sharing. They need more and more business skills. And that's why I said where it stands from. So the good news is I'll cover all these skills on the free webinar tomorrow, but I hope you got it. A lot of sales skills, a lot of executive presence, a lot of emotional intelligence, a lot of leadership, a lot of every one of those things. Now, here's the reason. We're kind of consultants. And we're basically going into a company. We're going to learn about their challenges and their goals, and then we're going to figure out a strategy for them. Now, when I worked as a management consultant, also called business architect, that's the same thing. So we'll take that one from there. Bring in the next question.
Okay, from Carlos. I'm in the Enterprise Architect program, Mike. Would Business Solution Architect be a better job title than Associate Cloud Architect? And how important is learning the business process model notation?
So there is no such thing as a business solutions architect. There is either business architect, which is a strategy consultant, enterprise architect, which does some business architecture and some technology architecture. Solution architect, by very definition, as soon as you add the solution, it becomes the smallest of roles and looks out for the most technology. So you're going in the opposite direction there. Solution architect, most junior role. We've got more types of platform architects that typically go above that. And then typically above that, we've got our enterprise architecture. So no, you don't want the word solution in it if you're there.
From Andrew, I'm a DevOps engineer with 2 years experience. I'm working in fintech, but we mainly use Terraform and ECS for microservices. This isn't much hands-on, and our DevOps team consists of just myself and my team lead. I have to do my own learning and hands-on with Code Cloud and a lot of your channel's videos. I recently resorted to using ChatGPT to give me use cases to work on. Now I'm starting to learn how to code full stack. And currently working on a project to build a grocery store app. Any advice on the best next possible steps to take, please?
Well, Andrew, what's your goal? What kind of career do you want? For example, if you told me you wanted to be a cloud architect and you're building applications, I'm going to tell you that what you're doing is showing me that you don't want to be a cloud architect. By comparison, if you were telling me you want to be a full stack developer, these kind of things that you're talking about are looking really great. So what's your goals? Now, I can tell you the biggest mistake most people make in their careers, and I'm going to have Alonzo add a little bit to this as well, is they just want to go build something. They're so excited to touch the tech, but they don't know what they're building and why they're building it. And they don't learn all the underlying things. So that's like walking into a doctor's office and them saying, you need gallbladder surgery, you need adenoid surgery, you need kidney surgery, without ever meeting the person. Okay, so if your goal is to be a cloud architect, what I'm going to tell you is that you're actually training in the wrong direction. So I have a list of things that we actually do as cloud architects. And the only thing we don't do is code, do DevOps, touch Linux, or do anything else. So let me give you, I made a list of the top 50 things that we do as architects. Let me just find it where I put it so I can read it off to you so it sounds somewhat structured. And then I want to show you why. And yes, we have architects working in Africa, and they're they're doing architect work as well. So let me just, here's the things where did I put this? Okay, so here's a list of things that we are going to be doing as an architect. And what I want you to understand is the projects you do have to reflect that. And I want you to join us tomorrow on our completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. So things that I do as an architect is I give a presentation almost every day. I lead and facilitate meetings constantly. I craft architectural documentation. I develop and maintain architecture frameworks. I create technology roadmaps that are aligned with business executives. I respond to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs. I look at an organization and identify any areas that require improvement in their business. And I think about what kind of technology that I can use to apply it to solve those business challenges. I develop IT governance policies and procedures. I collaborate with stakeholders and vendors in order to be able to craft a solution for my client. I have to meet with corporate executives to learn their business requirements, to learn their business strategy and their goal. I have to learn how to map out an organization's business processes. I conduct gap analysis between current and target architectures. I will oversee or at least help plan along with the rest of my architecture team application integration efforts and other types of network integration that needs to occur. I will develop and enforce architecture standards. I will optimize IT resource allocation. I will lead architectural review boards and build cost-benefit analysis. I will create impact assessments of various risks from various pieces of technology platform. And I will be evaluating various vendors. I will be leading proof of concepts. I will be conducting technology audits, but I won't be touching the technology. So for the things that you need to do as an architect, instead of building code, what you need to do is understand business first, because if you don't understand business, you won't be able to craft a strategy to help business, which is what we do as architects, and then learn the underlying technology. So, and I know you're working hard, I'm sure you are. So for example, most architects won't know how to write a Python script, a Linux Bash shell script. They're not even going to know how to turn on a Linux box and log into it. They don't know DevOps. They don't know DevOps tools. And learning these things is good, but basically it's the equivalent of you learning how to fly a plane when you want to be a surgeon. It's someone else's complete job. So I want you to think about that. Now, instead of learning how to code, which we will never do as architects, learn the underlying technology. So I'll give you an example of understanding technology and what I mean at this level. And then I'm only going to go into it for a minute versus the difference between configuring it. I'll give you a very simple thing to configure. On a Cisco router, I can type the commands router OSPF1, network 10.0.0.0, 0.0.0.255, area 0. Now, I gave you basically a couple of commands, and you put an interface or multiple interfaces on that router into area 0. And that helps you in no way as an architect. Well, now as an architect, if you're designing the interior gateway protocol for your private cloud, you would need to understand that OSPF is a link state protocol, and link state protocols work by building a map of all the links in the network and then running a shortest path calculation on it. You would understand that each router sends a different type of message or LSA to put into the database that they run that path. And that we have a type 1 LSA, for example, that's generated by the router and it advises of all the states of its links. A type 2 LSA, which would be generated by a designated router, which then provides LSAs for the broadcast multi-access segment. A type 3 LSA would be summary LSAs or information coming from the various areas in OSPF. And I could go on all day. So here I'm describing how something works. Because as an architect, I need to know how that protocol OSPF works. Because if I don't know where its breaking points are. I don't know how I can design it. I don't need to know how to configure it. So please join us on the completely free webinar tomorrow. And I love that you're learning things. So instead of learning the code, learn networking. I've got a free CCNA bootcamp on this channel that'll give you some of the networking you need. I also have a free BGP session where Mark and I, 2 network architects, put that in. I've got a free AWS Advanced Networking that'll give you some good networking training. And it's also on this channel. It's completely free, and I'd love you to get it. And there's a subnetting workshop too. So that'll give you some of the networking things that you need. And then learn compute. So understand servers and server virtualization and CPU performance and DRAM performance, because you got to understand the servers. Otherwise, you can't size or spec your virtual machines. You can't use the marketing numbers from the cloud providers. So learn how these servers work, and then learn how hypervisors work to create virtual machines, type 1 hypervisors. And then learn how containers are orchestrated, because the reality is, in most cases, you can't use an Amazon ECS. You have to use a Kubernetes environment. So I really hope this kind of thing helps. Learn the underlying technology. Andrew, I've got a lot of free training, a free CCSP security training that'll help you learn cloud security as well. It's all free on our channel. Please do that. And I'm so happy you're here, and join us in a free webinar, and come back and asking questions. Anything we can do to help you. But Alonzo, could you talk about, what it's been like? Because, before we ultimately, what happened is Alonzo had done a lot of training. Then we trained him. Then he got hired on the cloud. And Alonzo, I begged him to come back because I really wanted him to help treat our students. So Alonzo, could you talk about what happened when you learned how to, and what transitioned immediately when you learned the how, the why, and the architecture piece?
Oh yeah, definitely. We laugh a lot about me coming out of the cloud training wilderness, if you will, to really hone in on what I needed to learn instead of what people thought that everyone else should learn when they never had a cloud role in the first place. So I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of white papers, looking at a lot of cloud service provider specific resources and documentation that, although it was advantageous to understand it, but it didn't teach me, 1, what the cloud was, 2, how these services operate on the cloud, and you can apply them in a hybrid multi-cloud or hybrid multi-cloud environment. They didn't teach you how to put all the puzzle pieces together. So being on someone's management console and being able to click a few buttons here and there is a far cry from actually understanding how to create solutions based on the needs of the business. I say all this to say that you can't just create a solution if you don't know what the problem is. So if you're ready to just jump on the command line, I want hands-on training, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z, that means little to nothing when you're building something that is of no value. So we have to get personal with understanding the business. We have to understand what their annual reports have been, how they've operated in the past, how are they operating now, where do they want to go, meaning the as is to the to be state. What do we need to do to baseline where they are, be able to create a gap analysis, have conversations with leadership, understanding what the business means to them through their lenses. And by that, you can help bring what they're looking for into focus. Use some relatable business cases to create an illustration of how this thing could work. And then if they want to do this, and if it makes sense for their business, then we can build it, not before. So I utilize this example is that the house that you just bought is your business. And you bring, as we do in Texas, all of our pickup trucks are huge. And you buy a brand new pickup truck that's representative of the technology you want to add to your business. However, that pickup truck does not fit within your garage. Are you going to throw the house away? Or are you going to re-examine your truck purchase and find something that fits well for the business, ergo your house? So that requires, again, an analysis of the business and not a focus or emphasis on building technology.
And as we go to the next question, here's the thing. Any of these skills are like, you can easily learn all of them. You have to be taught. We're not born knowing any of these skills. And I got to tell you, to me, it was a lot easier learning how to do an ROI model than it was learn how to configure a router. And it's a higher paying skill too, interestingly enough and thankfully enough. So just understand, we can all learn these things. They shouldn't be so scary. It's just about getting the right training.
Don't feel intimidated. We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
We give you all the resources that you need here. There's two things we want. We want, of course, a good internet connection for you to communicate and get the resources you need. And number two, we need a strong, consistent determination to learn. You bring those things here, everything else will fall into place because the program works if you do. So start somewhere. Take 15 minutes out of the day, add it, work your way up to an hour or two per day. Whatever your lifestyle can afford for you to reach your dreams.
Tyrone, bring in the next one.
Foolish. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mike. I would like to ask about your systems architect role as well. I just opened this role at my current position. I am currently in the cloud architect program. Is this knowledge similar to the cloud?
Well, Foolish the Crow, here's the thing. The systems architect could be anything. So the systems architect could be the person that's the architect of the PC that is determining what kind of 10 gig ports need to be on the motherboard or 100 gig ports need to be on the motherboard, how many PCIe slots that thing needs to have, how many CPU cores this server is going to need, how much DRAM, and the architecture of the storage. That could be a systems architect. A systems architect could also be a pre-sales engineer, but doing architecture versus engineering as a solutions architect, because sometimes solutions architects are called systems architects. So systems architect could be considered anything for any system, honestly, anywhere. You've got systems architects that are working on mobile phones as their primary thing. So if you can tell me more about the job, I could definitely give you more information, Foolish the Crow. But the word systems architect could honestly be anything. So we need to know more about the role to be able to tell you if they're similar.
And we also like to know where you are with the program. We want to know where your competency is. You know, have you done a current SWOT analysis of your progress? What are your strengths, opportunities for improvement, opportunities to gain more knowledge, and any threats to said aggregate and improve knowledge as well. So share that with us, and we can definitely hone in on any solutions for you.
Yeah.
Cloud Doctor, how do you make sure cloud architectures are aligned with the organization's business goals?
Great question. And Alonzo, I'm going to have you talk about asking questions later. Don't let me forget that.
Okay.
So, here's the thing. If you get the right information, you come up to the right problem. In most cases, Cloud Doctor, the organizations are adopting technology and figuring out where to put it. So I have a family member. There were some bookcases that were on sale. This family member took the family SUV and bought 3 different bookcases and then tried to figure out where we could put them in the house. Now, this family member is a highly analytical person. This person's job is highly analytical, and really analytical people find what they need. And they're like, okay, I need a bookcase. No, we'll just figure out where the space is going to go and we'll figure it out. Unfortunately, 2 of those 3 bookcases had to go back because we didn't have any room in the house to put the bookcases, but at least we got one and that family's house. So all is good there. So there is that approach. The next approach is, okay, what are we trying to store? Okay, we have a heavy load of medical books where each book is 1,000 pages. A shelf of these books is going to weigh 500 pounds each or 200 pounds each. So we need a bookshelf that can support 800 pounds of medical books. Now, we can handle this much space in this room and then have it made or have it built or go buy the commercial off-the-shelf product that actually does it. But if we don't ask those questions, we're trying to shove something where it goes, kind of like a round peg in a square hole. So when the architect does not start with the executives and learn the business vision because they're either not CXO relevant or they don't have the business acumen to do it, chances are right then and there, the architecture is going to fail, because the reason is you're not going to know what success is. You have to find out from that executive, our goal is to increase revenue by X. Our goal is to increase our operating expenditure by Y or whatever it is. Because if you don't know what problem you're trying to solve, what the real challenge is, you don't know what you're solving. So that's like basically figuring out your destination before you get on the airplane.
Yeah.
Now, the next side to make sure that the architecture is aligned with the organization's business goals is to actually learn how that organization works. Because if you don't know how the organization works, and all of a sudden you introduce some new technology platform, that can break things so badly, so fast. So, for example, if an organization had an online call center that tended to yield to a lot of sales, and the whole thing was people would call with a problem, and this call center tech support team was so good, not only would they solve the problem, they'd give the customer a free thing and upsell them on something big. And let's say 50% of that organization's revenue came from that. And poof, all of a sudden, somebody's excited to do AI. So they put a new AI call center in. And nobody thought that the magic of that call center is their ability to upsell future things. So sure, now the call center people are gone. Now they're using AI. Yes, they saved a little money on their call center, but now their sales are all gone because nobody thought of the impact on that sale. So we have to learn how the business operates, how the products are produced, how the supply chain works, how each and every part of that works. And by dealing with that, once we know that, then we can say, is this the way you want it to work in the future? And if the answer is no, we find out how they want it to work, and then we map the technology to it. Now, at that point, once we know what they have, and we know what, and then we need to figure out what they have. So that typically means bringing in a team of people, baselining that organization's technology, and then evaluating what will this tech do, what will enable those new business processes, those new business goals. And if it doesn't, building and leading an architecture team of people that are going to help you create that roadmap, that tech blueprint to go solve it based upon you getting the questions. So, Alonzo, and you've gotten the opportunity to watch people that don't know how to ask questions versus watching people that are taught how to ask the right questions versus you in your life as an executive, in your life as a strategist. How important is it to be able to get the right questions or elicit the right information?
It's critical. It's beyond critical. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where they've been. So that requires to ask specific questions and learn how to bring those questions without repetition into greater focus by creating a chain of questions that help to solve, well, what have you done for the business? What is the business? What does the business want to go? Where has the business been? Where are, a lot of these type of escalated questions so that you don't have to go through repetition. You don't have to waste their time, because one of the things that I've learned over the years is that when you ask repetitive questions to executive, they get extremely annoyed because you're wasting their time. It's not a benefit. It's not a value add, and you're not helping their business move forward as you have advertised and what they're paying you the money for. Okay, so understand, by speaking to the right people about the right things, and get as much information as you can iteratively, so that the next round, if necessary, it can help bring them in their ideation of what they want the business to be and look like into greater focus. It creates more synergy. It creates more interest. You can even have more champions to your cause on how this technology should be implemented, which you really want to have. So if you, and then comparatively, if you don't ask the right questions, if you ask the same repetitious questions, or you go down a pathway that has nothing to do with the problems that they want solved, you go back to that same point of irritation, more time, more money, bad reputation on you as a problem solver. The list goes on. So understand the why. Understand how to create a positive, productive pattern of asking questions for key stakeholders to get the information that you need.
Yeah. Great question there. As a reminder, tomorrow, tomorrow, which is Thursday, we have a How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar, where we'll go over the cloud architect role, the skills that you need, what hiring managers are looking for, how to bypass HR so you don't get auto rejected when you're applying and you've got no experience, and everything you need to learn. So, and we can answer your questions live on Zoom. So please sign up. The link's in the chat box, the description, and it's free. Tyrone, bring in the next one, please.
Boost the Crow. I'm 3 months into the program and I have learned so much. Wonderful. The job is in the public sector for government ORG with about 500 employees. I've been working there as a tech computer systems specialist.
Great.
I know I have a long way to go in the program. I'm wondering if there are major overlaps in these roles that I could leverage. Any information from you is gold.
Okay, so overlaps in which things, Foolish the Crow? And overlaps in the current job that you have right now? Overlaps in maybe you were captain of a football team or something like that? Overlaps in the context of what? Because I really do want to help. And that's where we're really coming from. Now, coming from the actual hands-on doing, if we're referring to the role itself, it depends what you've actually been doing. And if you're working with computer systems, and that means potentially in that systems architecture and cloud architecture. So if you're talking about designing the systems for the government cloud, for example, what systems are going to be placed, what it's going to look like, this is pretty big. A big thing. Now, if you're calculating the virtual machine sizes or the server sizes, and you're calculating the DRAM, and you're looking at the storage performance, for example, are able to figure out a type of system that you need, again, this is very valuable. If you have good, strong knowledge of the storage area networks, whether block storage, whether it be fiber channel over Ethernet, for example, or whether it be the old fiber channel networks, that'd be incredibly helpful to you. If you've got experience with file storage and file storage, that would be incredibly helpful from a knowledge perspective. If you've got knowledge of object storage for backup, archival, and big data purposes, which you're working with, that'll also be good for you. If you've got knowledge of firewalls or IDS, IPS systems or routers or switches, that is also going to be that very valuable knowledge. Knowledge of how they work and why they're using them. Not and how you put them together, not knowledge on how to do them per se. And it's counterintuitive, and I know I say this a lot of times, but here's the reason. I've interviewed over 6,000 technology professionals. Over 5,900 of them, if I asked them to compare and contrast block storage, object storage, tell me how they work, tell me how they differ in data, metadata, tell me about the storage architecture, and tell me how and where I would integrate them into my business, they don't know. And they may know where to use each one. They definitely know how to set it up, but they don't know why, and they don't know the what. And that's the interview. And the architecture role is all about this theoretical why. If, for example, I configure BGP at this peering point, what does that do to my entire organization? What if we were redistributing internet routes into the entire gateway protocol? It was a standard and accidentally did this, which clearly would cause a problem. Do we need to carry those routes across the system? If so, do we need IBGP? Now with IBGP, do we have the ability to fully mesh our systems? Do we do a confederation? Do we do a route reflector? This is all the theoretical. All this stuff, architecture is all theoretical. Where this hands-on implementation, this construction is all real. And sadly, the people that do all the building, like the people that build the buildings, don't get asked to design them. That's why I have architects design them and construction crews build them. Same thing on these tech systems. So I don't exactly know what you're doing with these systems right now. But if you're doing that and you're designing these systems, yeah, that's going to be highly beneficial. And that should make our program and all those cloud architecture fundamental sections a lot easier for you, hopefully. But here's the good news. No matter how much time it takes, we just want you to stay in the program and we want you to win. We're not going to rush you by any stretch of the imagination. That's just not who we are. We just want to know you're successful. So stay with us until you win. And by win, I mean hired. But I hope I answered your question. But if not, ask more. I really, really want to help.
Cloud Doctor, what emerging trends or technology do you think will have the biggest impact on enterprise architecture?
Okay, Cloud Doctor, it's a great question. Let's talk about a few things that are happening recently. The first thing is AMD pretty much just came out with a brand new server processor. Why am I talking about it? Because Intel just came up with their fastest Intel server processor, and AMD's one processor will outperform these two. It is a 192 physical core processor, and it's not that expensive. And why am I saying this? Because when you can put 292 core processors in a server, and you can fill that server with a good 8 terabytes of DRAM and an NVMe RAID array, it makes cloud computing look awfully expensive. And it makes private clouds like OpenStack Cloud and Nutanix Cloud potentially much cheaper. And we're potentially talking 20 to 30% cheaper than it was 6 months ago with CPUs that can do this and servers that can do this. We're also seeing a tremendous trend in ARM processors. ARM processors are both very inefficient and they tend to be cost effective. So the cloud providers are trying to use that to cut their computing costs, but private organizations can do it. Organizations are realizing that cloud costs are too high, not because they shouldn't be using the cloud, and all organizations are realizing they should be using the cloud. They realized their first cloud architectures were disastrous because they didn't know what to move and how to move and why to move them. So many of those cloud architectures are going back to the data center, which is great because we've been teaching multi-cloud and private clouds to our architects since the first day we opened our doors. So there's that. Now, you also see a need for increases in efficiency. The US, ever since COVID, has had struggling productivity numbers. And when it comes to increasing standard of living, you need higher productivity numbers. And the productivity of the worker in the US and industrial Europe has actually gone down quite substantially since the work from home movement. I love working from home. I'm not coming out against working from home, but the productivity that employers have actually yielded has not been as good as prior to working from home, because somebody snicks in their workout, they drop their kids off at school, and even if it's 1 hour out of the 8, it's still an hour lost of productivity. So it doesn't happen everywhere. Some people are more productive at home. I'm not here on that argument, but productivity has been going down. So organizations have productivity going down. They have inflation and they have high labor costs. So organizations are looking to automate. So we got these big processors going towards the data center. Now we have automation. And we finally are at a point where many organizations have data or are starting to get the data they can use AI to automate. So I see a lot of automation of certain type roles. And enterprise architecture that's going to be focused on that people, processes, and technology is going to be the square in the center of that. How do we use these technologies to optimize? Where can we replace people? Where can we redeploy our people in a more strategic manner? How can we take the people that we have that are productive and make them super productive and pay them more? How can we move out of the business the people that are doing the bare minimum to get by? Because they're not really contributing anyway. So that's what you'll see out of that AI side of this thing. Simultaneously, you're seeing networks getting faster. When I started a 56K leased line between New York and Delhi, India, 56 kilobit per second was $5,000. They're actually doing some new frequencies over fiber optics, and the speed is so high. So that's going to enable a whole new world of things. It makes geography become even less relevant. It improves the quality of video that can be delivered, the quality of sound that can be delivered, the quality of meetings, which can make real world remote meetings better. And I love Zoom. I use Zoom every day. I think Zoom is probably the best meeting product in my experience that I've used. So nothing against Zoom. I love Zoom. But, you know, when I was at Cisco, they had these telepresence rooms. And basically every room in every office was built identical. They were all painted the same colors. They all had the same tables, and the chairs even looked the same. They all had the same lighting set up at the same temperature. So no matter where you were, you had a boardroom. and you were looking at a boardroom around you in the room, and you could play Coke or poker with people and watch the sweat coming down, and you could look at their micro expressions. It was so good. Now that took a lot of bandwidth, but now we're seeing networking speeds that are so big. So we have that kind of video we're actually able to do. We're also seeing a lot of movement towards satellite. So that eliminates communication problems potentially in any part of the world that has a challenge getting terrestrial signals. So examples, parts of the world where you couldn't actually make a phone call unless you had a sat phone that where you're paying multiple dollars per minute for. Now Elon Musk got a Starlink satellite phone service, and anywhere in the world, or at least it's releasing, you can place a phone call. You also have data access. So parts of the world where it was hard to get technology to, we actually have that. So you see a lot of proliferation in networking. So those three things are major players, but what we're seeing in terms of compute performance, especially from AMD and then from NVIDIA, is so big that what we'll be able to do a year from now, 2 years from now, and 3 years from now is so much more. I mean, that NVIDIA H200 that's coming out, even the H100 was amazing. But if you look at that new AMD CPU chip with that 192 cores, and you look at the architecture of that, and you look at the cost of it, data centers got a lot cheaper real fast. The way do you see the amount of AI and heavy-duty, hardcore compute in the data center and all the agility there. And the last part of it is multi-cloud. Is actually two things as a cloud doctor is security. Security is a massive weakness, especially on the cloud, but also off the cloud. There's an estimated shortage of 4.7 million IT security people. So a lot more security products, a lot more focus on security because it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. So security, I believe, will have a more sophisticated, more important part of the business into that enterprise architecture realm as well. So they're the biggest things that I see going on right now. But understand that everything is multi-cloud now. It's all multi-cloud. I mean, I don't know how anybody actually did put it in a single cloud in the first place. That was terrifying to me when I looked at it. I'm like, why? Didn't we already learn this example in network architectures? Never used that one carrier, always used two. You could see all the principal and distinguished architects from networking, the people that have been the architect leadership. We're looking at this like, why on earth would anybody do this? And now 98% of enterprises went multi-cloud. So for the rest of them, it's just a matter of time too.
Cloud Doctor, lastly, how do you manage disagreements over architectural decisions? Thank you for all your great insights.
So Cloud Doctor, there's a couple things. So here's not the way I want you to do it, but here's the way I want you to think about it. One person is lead. I had a manager. He was from the Marine Corps. He was a tough guy. He got everybody's opinion. And he said, this is not a democracy. I make the decision. So I don't want you to ever act like that, but I want you to think about it that if you're the leader, what you ultimately have to do is you have to get the best input you can, the best information you can, and ultimately you have to make a decision. So there is that. So you can see this decision by consensus. That's the decision by democracy. You can go to a university or you can go to a homeowners association, and you can see that that university has been trying to install a new machine. And 15 years later, they're still trying to get a consensus at the budgetary meetings. That doesn't work at the speed of business. There's times for it, like selecting your leaders. Yes. But when it comes to an architecture, you have to have a leader. So think about that. Now, in the context of this, most of what we do in architecture, we're going to be collecting information from really smart people. And they've got a lot of expertise and a lot of experience. And with that, often comes egos. Often comes the cat-like personality, which I'll actually describe. So they can say managing an architecture team is like herding cats. And here's the reason. Everybody we get on our team is smart. And anytime you work with really, really smart people, they have oddities. For example, my wife has 800 pairs of shoes. she's got an IQ of nearly 170. And that's just what's normally, you just expect somebody with an IQ of nearly 170 to have something wacky like 500 pairs of shoes still in boxes that have never been worn. But that's what you get. So now you're going to have all these architects that are going to be geniuses like that. So you're going to have to find a way to herd those cats and get them to work together. So what does it really come down to? It comes down to your level of emotional intelligence. If you're emotionally intelligent, and you're also empathetic and you can see things from another person's perspective, you'll be able to communicate with them in a manner that's going to work. It's also about your openness. I really like your input. This, and this were really great. And all in all, I would have used exactly what you suggested had this circumstances been different, had not been different. It's a great idea. I hope to use it next time. I like it so much, but I can't use it here. And by doing it that way, you're not hurting someone. You can even go back straight to that person's manager and after you deny it and write an email and say, I got to tell you, you should see the creativity and intellect that your employee XYZ person explained. You should have seen what it gave me, all this time, effort, and thought. You don't even have to talk about not using it because it's helping that guy or girl and showing them that you actually care. Not being closed-minded. And when you ask questions. So I'm going to give Alonzo 2 opportunities to ask this question. And he can give me an honest answer. The first question, Alonzo, you don't drink, do you?
Well, I believe there's opportunities to do X, Y, and Z, but professionally, that's not something I do on the job.
Right. Alonzo, do you ever have a drink?
Sometimes, but not on the job.
The answer you get is completely different based upon the way you word it. So there's a term that Cialdini uses called persuasion, where you basically give a business person an answer, something they want you to do, and you plant the seeds in their head. A bad doctor says to their patient, you don't smoke, right? I don't smoke. I don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, the patient smells the cigarettes. There's a pack of cigarettes in their shirt. Yeah. And I saw somebody do that when I was precepting someone in my old internal medicine days. So that's the way you get information. It's up to you sometimes to have a conversation with someone on the side. You thank everyone for their contributions because the reality is they're probably all great. And at the end of the day, when you actually design and build these architectures before you send it to the engineers to build it, there's any one of 50 different ways you can do it. And your job, if you're the lead architect, is to say, okay, of all the great options I have, after evaluating all these trade-offs, this gives us this benefit, and this benefit. The next architecture gives us this benefit and this benefit. The next architecture gives us this one benefit, but it's the biggest benefit, so we're going to choose it anyway. Or you're going to have to make that determination. Or this gives us 3 big benefits, this gives us 2 big benefits, but these 3 big benefits are bigger. Choose this one. So ultimately, that's what goes down to it. I kind of hope that makes sense. Alonzo, you want to add to that at all? Because you deal with conflict as a leader all the time in every job you've ever worked.
Well, the one thing is diplomacy. Diplomacy. Ultimately, you have the last say, but how you respond to the inquiries, the disagreements, and how you, I wouldn't say allow people to leave the discussion, but give them something positive to walk away with. So you may not agree with their response, but ensure that you tell them how you value their position. But in this point in time, we can use that at a later date, but this one seems to better align with the goals of the business and what stakeholders want. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, sharing your value and how you would approach it. And we definitely want to keep it under consideration at a later date. Instead of saying, no, I don't like your stuff, go away. So you can't do it that way. You alienate your team, you alienate them from coming to you with other solutions. And ultimately it comes back to you as not being productive, cohesive, and having synergy within the team as well. So disagreements with architectural decisions, ultimately as a leader, it will be yours, but just give them an understanding that they are valued, but the other direction ultimately rests in the chosen decision. Carlos, I am 3 months into the Enterprise Architect program and curious about job market and ideal months to start applying. How can I leverage my business intelligence background for more business-focused architect roles?
Okay, so Carlos, I don't recommend applying until you can do the job. So I can tell you as a hiring manager, I am inundated with people that can't do the job. When someone applies and they can't do the job, I remember them and never interview them again in the future because they wasted my time. And more importantly, they didn't know their strengths, they didn't know their weaknesses, they didn't know their limitations, which means if I ever were to hire them, they'd be too dangerous. So I'm very cautious about applying only for jobs that I know I can actually do. So, Carlos, when you're in our course, when we put you on the architecture projects, you know exactly which questions to ask. That's step one. When you're able to know which questions to ask and then design these architectures, that's step two. When you're able to present these architectures and document these architectures back to us in a manner that we say, yes, that's good, I'm interested, then pretty much you're going to be ready. So you're ready when you can do the job. And I will tell you, if you're in for 3 months, you're probably going to need another 9 months or so, or another 7 or 8 months minimum for an enterprise architect role, because it's a more strategic architect. If I can get somebody to a cloud architect to about 8 to 12 months, the enterprise architect's going to take a little bit longer. But the key is all of your life is cumulative. So if you had a big business background, maybe you were a strategy consultant working for McKinsey, and you were going in there and you were evaluating an organization's business processes, for example, and you were creating mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive hypothesis for the organization, and you found a systematic way to test these hypotheses, and you were creating of new business architectures and such. If you had that and you told me that was your background, I'd say this is a 6-month thing for you because you're already halfway there. If you're telling me that you were working as an investment banker, and in the process of an investment banker, you found other investors to come on a project, you managed the legal contracts, you were involved in taking a company public and architecting that, and you told me that you were in the position of raising money and all that, I'd say, yeah, your business intelligence is huge and you're 50% there. So if I don't know what you mean by your business intelligence background. Now, if you happen to be in the don't answer this, in the industrial espionage world, where you're focusing as a corporate spy, and you know how to sneak into these companies, because that could be intelligence, and you know how to ask the right questions and do polite interrogations without anybody knowing what you're actually doing, and you found weaknesses in that system to be able to obtain information, because to me, that's business intelligence. Now you're in a position where you know how to do 3/4 of the job. Now you just need to learn the architecture piece. Because a lot of what we do, we kind of go in there like a sleek spy. How are you? Tell me about this. Tell me about this. And the next thing you realize, we're collecting information. So if it's that. Now, if you're doing analyst work, it's going to be a little further away because we're less about analyzing. Well, they are doing an analysis, but we're less of the people that actually crunch the numbers and more the people that analyze the numbers and determine what we can do with the numbers. But as soon as you can do the work and the projects in class and they're easy for you, you're competent and you'll win on interviews. So that's what I like to say, when you can do the job. Any guidance from you on that one, Alonzo?
You hit the nail on the head. We understand that 2024 has been challenging for a lot of our students and just citizens overall. But we want to make sure that you don't engage into your next career unprepared or ill-prepared. Make sure you have the competency. Have you participated in the various threads? Have you been posting your competency through updated white papers on LinkedIn, sharing your thought influencing ideation for some of these LinkedIn posts? Have you been doing practice rounds with sharing your competency with your fellow EA students? We did this so that you don't learn within a vacuum, that you can constantly vet your knowledge against your own students and ask us questions as well. Have you been showing up for class? When was the last time you showed up for class or did a team assignment on one of the classes, do a self gap analysis to make sure that you have the competency instead of jumping in. Because, say for instance, you do get the job, there's a difference between getting the job and keeping the job, and even more so for excelling in the job. So I just want to make sure that we do not we want to make sure you're well prepared and that you have all the resources you have available to ensure your preparation. Okay, so Carlos, do those assessments, ask yourself, ask others, do interview questions. Are you able to answer this? Do you understand what's involved in enterprise architecture? Have you done and understand the knowledge of the varying enterprise architectural frameworks? Why would we go about these processes? What happens when you implement change management initiative? Many of very different subject matters that we want you to understand. You have all of this. We know that you can do it, and make sure that you're able to answer these questions when the time comes for your interview process.
Yeah.
Foolish. By systems architect, they are looking for someone to provide counsel and design on-prem and cloud systems. How could I create a portfolio to get them to think of me as a decent candidate?
Okay,
Portfolio.
Foolish, the crow. If you're in our program, you should be creating your protocol, your portfolio. You should be crafting thought leadership documents on various technologies and their impact on business. You should be creating content on various technologies and macroeconomic factors and how various technologies could be used in various challenging situations. You should be drafting on solving various business problems with technology, and follow all those branding things that are actually in our program. They're all about actually building a real portfolio of what architects do. Yeah, there was somebody that, and it happened a couple of times. I interviewed them for an architecture job, and they tried to show me their GitHub profile. I'm like, "What's this?" And they're like, "It's my Git. Don't you want to check out my code on my projects?" And I said, "No." I said, "I needed this strategist that can design a system to optimize business performance. I don't care about your ability to code. I care about your ability to solve problems." And then I saw it again, and I saw it again. And I'm like, who's giving architects this information to put out GitHub projects and a portfolio of tech projects?
Yeah.
Show me a portfolio of strategy projects.
Right. Exactly. And we don't, in just to be blunt, we don't look to see how clean your code is. We don't.
No.
We don't care. We don't understand. We want to know how this code is going to create business value, and it doesn't. It just helps improve whatever iterative process in the CI, CD, or software development lifecycle, or anything else within that realm. It is valuable, but again, it goes right back to it. What are you showing me that's relative to my business? You know, you've done this for someone else's business. How do you know what I need? You know, and say, for instance, for posterity's sake, they want to look at your code. They would pick it apart, and you would be rebranded out of the cloud architecture role into becoming an engineer. And that'll be right back where you started and negate all the training that you went through. So be strategic with that.
So, for example, when I invited students to participate in rewriting the AWS Solutions Architect Professional Book, that's an opportunity to be published in cloud computing. That belongs in your portfolio. That's why I kind of created a lot of these opportunities for our students. When we do group architecture projects, and there's somebody that has to deliver a presentation, and there's somebody that writes up the architecture document, and I don't mean the PowerPoint, I mean the document that explains the technology. That's an architectural document for your portfolio that you created.
Right.
So start collecting the architecture pieces. That's what belongs in your portfolio. Imagine if you went to a doctor and they showed you a collection of their firearms. Now, if you were a firearms lover, it might be interesting, right? And if you're a firearms hater, you wouldn't want to go back to that doctor. But when I go to a doctor, I don't go to look at their collection of firearms. I go for their ability to cure me or heal me or protect me. And that's what we need to see as an architect. So make sure 100% of what's in your portfolio is architecture. If you gave a presentation in a conference, that's in your portfolio. That's architecture. You wrote a thought leadership document, that's an architecture. RFI, RFP, RFQ response, and if you're in our program, you've responded to them, that's an architecture thing to do. Creation of architectural documentation, sure. Any in the enterprise architect program, anytime you go through some of those, we go through some of those business environments and we go through another phase in a TOGAF framework and there's an architectural collection of documents, that's an architecture portfolio. So make it full of architecture stuff and you're going to do great. And what you're learning there is exactly what you're learning in our program, how to design on-premise cloud and cloud systems and on-premise data center systems. So you should be good to go for that.
Are there any certifications you recommend that would look stellar for this, i.e. a designer of IT systems?
There is one certification that actually has to do with system design. It's more technical architecture than, say, cloud architecture or enterprise architecture, but it's a real architect certification. And that is the Cisco Certified Design Expert. That is a real architecture certification where they give you a business case, they give you a business challenge, and then they give you a technical challenge, and then you break, and they ask you to design it, and then you have to present it back to them, and they interrogate you with questions on it the way you would as a real architect. Now, the CCIE, and I do love it, will cost you $20,000 to $30,000 to pass that exam by the time you're done with the appropriate training materials. It will take you at least 12 months to pass the exam, and it will overly focus you on the tech. But kind of keep them in the back of your mind. I still don't not recommend it. I think that the CCDE is great. There's so many things that I love about it. The question becomes is, do you focus on developing your business acumen, which can be worth $200,000 more each year over the life of your career as you move up? Or do you focus on a CCDE certification, which really won't maximize your salary at all? It'll have a small impact on your salary, but maybe it gets you an additional $10,000 versus an additional $200,000 for the business acumen. But I promise you, if you do the CCDE, it will open a tremendous number of doors. You'll be much more competent by the time you're done it. And it will be a non-fun process. Most people will, get about $10,000 to $15,000 of training. They'll take the exam, they'll fail it. Then they'll get another $10,000 of training. They'll take an exam, they'll fail it. Then they'll get a little more training, take it a third time, and they'll fail it. And I've done a CCIA, and I can tell you what the process is like. But by the time you're done, you do get really, really, really good. So that's the CCDE. Now, I will tell you that if you're in our program and you're following our list, you're doing either the Azure Solutions Architect Expert or the AWS Solutions Architect Professional, and we have the training in there for it. That will do nothing to teach you architecture, but it looks good. It's a systems administration sort, but it looks good. If you're in our program, you're also doing the TOGAF 10, which is more about a digital transformation architecture framework type method, which again is an architecture certification. And if you're in our program, you're getting the CISSP certification. And why? Because it provides a very good end-to-end security perspective. It provides some good security architecture in there. It addresses things purely from that leadership perspective. And by the time you're done, you'll have a good certification portfolio. And they're my three favorites right now. And, I used to use others other than the CISSP because there were other certifications that I liked. I used more network and data center ones. But the problem is security is so big and the security shortage is so short that I've got people working, and I'm not joking, top secret environment as security architects in key positions that have never worked in tech before with that combination of people plus our training. And because of that, that's why I like that combination. You're muted, Alonzo. And if you got, before you do, well, Alonzo's muted. So before Alonzo responds, if you've got any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, Alonzo is in the bit busy of heavy-duty architecture content creation. I'm behind the scenes doing some special skunkworks project. So if you've got questions, Alonzo and I allocated the time. But if not, we're pretty busy. But I do. So let's get to this question.
Okay, Review Online is asking, I recently got to know about Go Cloud Careers. Your programs look great value to me, but I don't have much knowledge about your program, so I have questions. What are your questions, Review? Do your courses and boot camps have hands-on labs?
Okay, so Review Online, we do have hands-on labs in our architecture program, but understand architects don't do hands-on things. So sure, we have labs on AWS, sure, we have labs on Azure, and honestly, we do them because we feel that it's good to have them in there. We actually do what I call real labs that matter. So we bring people into our data center, and we actually have them build virtual machines, containers, firewalls, file servers, Active Directory servers, and every one of our students builds our own cloud too.
Review is asking, do I use my credit card to do the labs?
Okay, Review Online, I want to make it clear. This is an architecture program. There's approximately 1,000 hours of training outside of the labs here. The labs are the complete least important part of the training for any architect. And here's the reason. You can code and configure all day, but you still won't learn architecture. For example, I can tell you the best way I can describe it is many people use their PC all day. That's a lab. Every day you use your PC. But if I ask 99% of the population, could you tell me about the architecture of your PC? Tell me what amount of power is coming into your power supply and how it's being supplied to the motherboard. Tell me about that CPU socket that's in here and the CPU and the amount of CPU cores you have and the frequency you have of those cores. And then the cache in that, the level 1, level 2, and 3 cache and how that impacts on performance. And the DRAM and how does the DRAM speed and operate and shove information into memory. How many PCI lanes are on that CPU and how does that affect the number of GPUs I can use in an AI environment, for example. All that stuff is the stuff that you need to know. The labs are easy. Labs are nothing. And sure, we provide labs, but if you're going to train with us, we're not going to just give you labs. We're going to make sure that you're trained. We're going to make sure that you've got expert skills and you're going to stay on our program until you're hired. So I don't want you to think we just do simple lab training because honestly, that doesn't do anybody any good whatsoever. That's just the ability to do a little bit of test on labs. We teach people what they need to know. And we teach people how to get the job, how to interview for the job, how to do every component of the job, including how to negotiate a higher salary.
Well, also Review, your online training to do these labs will be added or baked into your overall development training. So you wouldn't have to incrementally use your credit card to do labs. You have everything that you need right there. But to emphasize, we only do this because we understand certain people know how to learn specific ways, hands-on, visually, audibly, things like that. But we do not code, and we tell you, here's why. If cloud architects are supposed to code, then what are the developers, programmers, engineers supposed to do? Our side is more aligned to the business. We have to speak to the leaders about what they want this technology to do based off of how and when and where they want to get there. We can't build stuff that we know nothing about. So that's why it's important to understand why we do not code. Once we get this, all the information that we need, we'll translate it into documents that engineers understand how to build. And that's when the magic happens on that side of the fence, but not before.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by using your credit card to do labs. And that's, I think, where the challenge is coming from. So we have a program, a full program, and yes, the program has labs, but we're selling a full program.
Yeah, not incremental.
We're not just selling labs. So, and maybe you're asking something different than we're actually looking at. I mean, if you VPN into our data center, we own the technology. So there's nothing you're going to pay because we're providing it. If you decide to do labs in Oracle systems, we don't own Oracle. They may ask for your credit card, but they almost may give you a free account, but we don't own them. But there's no cost to do anything on our systems, and the labs are part of our program. I hope that makes sense, because I don't know that if I completely understood your question. Just because, you know, when we think in the context of training an architect, the labs might be 2% of the other 98%.
Yeah.
And that's why our graduates are working at Apple, at Amazon, at Cisco, at IBM, at Google, at Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Credera, LeaseWeb, CDW, Citrix, Palo Alto, I know Zscaler, and a whole bunch of other companies, because we're training for what they want. So I hope I answered that in the right way. I just wasn't sure we understood the question.
So if anyone has any other questions, we're happy to be here to help. We're always in the lab. We're always collaborating. Mike, Mark, Chris, the rest of the Go Cloud team, and myself, we're always doing weekly ideation, think tank initiative to see how can we make things better, how can we improve, how can we give everyone what they need to be a competent, strong, in-demand architect of whatever designation you deem is great for your career. So we're here for your questions. If you don't have any questions today, feel free to join us tomorrow on our webinar. Always have questions at the ready if you want to speak to someone like myself for a video conference call to understand better, get an understanding of the value that we have at Go Cloud Career. So we're here for you. We just want to emphasize that, and also want to share as well our 60% off deal. This does not happen, but only once during this time frame in the year. So please don't wait until the last minute, because we are doing this on a seat by seat basis. So take advantage of the 60% off. It's already added onto the price right now. So you have an opportunity to make a payment, a one-time payment. You can break those installments out into 3 or 6 monthly payments for increased convenience, savings, and value. So join us when you have an opportunity. We'd love to work with you.
Absolutely love to work with you. So I'll give it 30 seconds from now if I see any questions. Otherwise, Alonzo and I have a lot of other things that we're willing to do. So any questions come in the next 30 seconds, we will take them, because we can go up to 2 p.m. Although truthfully, it's been a rough day. So if there's any, we'll happily do them.
Review online. Probably you already answered this. What is the tech background you expect for someone to have before they join your program? 0.
I don't expect any background ever. Everybody we train can get to any goal that they have. And really what matters is their energy, their enthusiasm, their passion, and their work. Jeffrey West came to us and he was a brand newbie. And he wasn't working in technology. He left our program, hired as Kalian as a solution architect as his first tech job. Ivan Tamba joined us. He was working as a waiter. He was a college student at Georgia Tech and got hired by AWS while I was in college after our training, no tech background. Richard Ferrari worked at MUFG Bank in a non-tech role, left our program working as a cloud architect for the bank that he was working for. Lenny Burnett was our video editor, but he left our program as a solutions architect for Citrix. Delroy Batt was an emergency medical technician working on ambulances, but he was hired as a cloud security architect straight after our program at CDW. Balwinder Kerr was a stay-at-home mom before she met us. She left our program and was hired as a cloud solutions architect by Microsoft. Jermaine Houston was selling landscaping gear. He left our program, hired at Southern New Hampshire University as an enterprise architect. Al Legister was working for Kimberly-Clark as a sales rep in the consumer products group. He left our company after our training as a senior solutions architect at Deloitte. So I don't assume you have any background. We start all of our people from the very, very, very beginning. And here's the reason why. Let's say you knew software development. You probably wouldn't know networking. You probably wouldn't know compute. You probably wouldn't know storage, and you probably wouldn't know security. So you'd know applications. Let's say you're an infrastructure architect like me. You know compute. You know networking. You know storage, but you don't know applications. You got to bring in somebody for that. So that my background is not required. What I require is a strong willingness to learn, the ability to do the work, the desire to fight until they finish the 1,000 hours of training. Because, it doesn't, most people get hired before they finish the 1,000 hours of training, but we all learn at our own speed, and we don't kick people out of the program until they're hired. We're not like a boot camp. We don't do boot camps. So we just want people that have the willingness to do the work, do the reading, do the questions, do the classes. And if they do that, we have some pretty incredible people. So that's the background I expect, a good willingness to learn.
Another question from Review Online. Good to know. How many hours per week is the commitment for a student?
I don't have a hard commitment on that, and here's the reason why. We let you stay in the program until you're hired. So that's the first reason. And not everybody's time commitments are the same. So when I was younger, I dated a South American girl, and over the course of a year and a half, I learned to speak Spanish. My wife had a medical practice in a Latin American area in Florida, and within 2 weeks was speaking fluent Spanish, and she didn't speak Spanish before. It took me a year and a half. It took my wife 2 weeks to learn Spanish. By comparison, from the time I decided I was going to go to networking, I did a CCNA, a CCNP, a CCDA, a CCDP, and the hardest certification in the world, the CCIE, that normally takes 4 or 5 years to accumulate that, and I did it in 9 months. So some of these things Review Online are going to be super easy for you to learn. Some of these things will be challenging, and I don't know what they are. I don't know how fast you learn, but I will tell you, if we could have somebody that could put 20 hours a week into it consistently, it would be great.
Yeah.
And if they could put 15 hours a week into it, that's okay too. It'll just take them longer to get through it. And with our perspective is life, it happens. You never know what happens in life. I had one student that had to go to Ethiopia for like 3 months. I had another student to take care of a family member that had to go to India for a year. I had another student that had a baby. He just disappeared and called and said, "Can I come back?" And I'm like, "Welcome back. I remember." So things happen. But the point is we are not a boot camp. When you train with us, we want to change your life. And you stay with our program. We care until you graduate, and graduation is hired. So that's my perspective of how we train people. All right, I think that's the last question we have for today. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified of new videos we're going to make for you.
Yeah, one more question, Mike. What time zone are your live sessions?
Well, our time zone sessions we use as Eastern Standard Time as the primary time that we teach our 2-hour classes in. But we've got students attending them from, honestly, every country you could think of. The only place where we don't have students is Antarctica. But maybe we'll start penguin training one day. But we've got students all over North America, South America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia, Australia. And Tyrone or someone from our team, drop in the website. I think it includes a lot of this information on there. Well, I guess the last thing that I will say is tomorrow, we're going to have a How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. We will go over the role, everything you need to know, how to skip those pesky HR people that like auto reject you, and we'll teach you how to get around that. We'll answer any questions you may have, and we'll go over our training program as well. Please join us. It's free. We currently have 60% off, and it's not going to last long, our Black Friday discount on all programs, which means that right now the Cloud Architect Career Development Program, the live program, costs about a day's pay for the average cloud architect based upon the average cloud architect salary. So we think that's an incredibly good deal right now. And it's been an honor spending some time with you. You got to spend some time with me. You got to spend some time with Alonzo. We look forward to seeing more of you so much soon. Take care, everyone.